So we have more details about the shocking release of Zelina Vega by WWE that broke last night. Now, I did an immediate reaction to the news that Zelina Vega had been released last night, so be sure to check that out on the channel. But obviously, as we would expect with these kind of stories, these kind of situations, we're getting more and more details about the circumstances that led up to Zelina Vega being released by WWE, some of the fallout from it, the reaction backstage. I'm sure this will continue. This has to continue over the coming days and weeks, and maybe, I wouldn't even want to speculate to be honest, but maybe she won't even be the only name affected by this crackdown by Vince McMahon and the WWE on these third-party platforms such as Twitch, Cameo, etc. But we have some more details about the sudden release of Zelina Vega from WWE. Now, speculation has been rife about what led to Zelina Vega leaving World Wrestling Entertainment. Many speculated that Zelina Vega had been fired for publicly backing unionization, despite there only being 10 minutes between the tweet that she posted and the confirmation of her release. However, PW Insider has reported that several details that led to this decision by WWE to release Zelina Vega. The release of Zelina Vega was, quote, fallout from last month's edict that talents dropped their relationship with third parties. This includes, of course, Twitch, Cameo, etc. And that Vega was informed that she was being released by the company earlier in the day before she posted the tweet. This is according to pwinsider.com. Now, before I carry on there, I was quite surprised that some people genuinely thought that Zelina Vega had been released because she posted a tweet about unionization and then she was released 10 minutes later. On what earth does that happen? I mean, the timelines just don't fit. I was stunned. There was quite a few media outlets. I mean, I don't even know if I should name them. Oh, screw it, I will. Bleacher Report mentioned this as well. They were like, oh, I think these are linked. Zelina Vega posts this tweet and then 10 minutes later she's released. Seriously? On what earth does it work like that? Obviously, she was informed of this decision earlier on in the day or prior to her tweeting that, of course. Then she tweets it, and the confirmation was always going to come out later on in the day. I think the fact that they were so close is just almost a coincidence. You know, the fact, who would be that quick? WWE, they can barely write their show before it goes on the air, let alone a release post, 10 minutes after she posted a tweet. That isn't going to happen. So I was quite surprised, legitimately, that some people thought, oh, that she posted that and then Vince McMahon went, you're fired. It was Vince McMahon typing up the responses as well? Of course not. Of course not. I was very, very surprised that people thought that was the timeline of events there, because it obviously wasn't. Now, going back to this report by PW Insider, it's also noted that Zelina Vega, like many other talents, is bound by the traditional 90-day non-compete clause when talents are released from their WWE contracts and cannot work anywhere else in the pro wrestling business until the middle of February 2021. So we're not going to see Zelina Vega appear on Impact Wrestling or AEW at least until February, maybe even March of next year. So people thinking that she's going to show up at Turning Point tonight for Impact Wrestling, or she's going to show up on Dynamite before the end of the year, that isn't going to happen. That just isn't going to happen. So we maybe need to lower expectations when it comes to her appearing on other programming. But PW Insider also states that their WWE sources indicated that Vega had been extremely vocal about maintaining her Twitch account after the edict had been handed down. Again, that note by PW Insider is not shocking. I don't think Zelina Vega is the only one. I mean, look at these people's Twitch accounts. Zelina Vega hasn't been the only one saying that this whole Twitch and third-party platform stuff is BS, the independent contractor stuff is BS. She's not the only one. There have been numerous other people, whether that's Paige, Adam Cole, Cesaro, and a million more, right? Mia Yim was one of these people. And again, they haven't been maybe less vocal as the likes of Zelina Vega and maybe as Paige, but they don't have as much tenure as Paige or Zelina Vega. I think Zelina Vega, probably rightfully so, thought, you know what, you can't bully me, you can't push me around, tell me that I can't do this when I'm an independent contractor. Again, this is the whole independent contractor stuff. I'm not saying, and I was thinking about this a lot last night after the news came out about Zelina Vega's release. I'm not saying that WWE labeling their talent as independent contractors is necessarily wrong. I don't think it's right, but it's not necessarily wrong. What I think is wrong about this is that your independent contractors aren't treated like independent contractors. I think that's where it fundamentally, WWE's argument and WWE's rationale on this just completely breaks down. if you label them as independent contractors, and I don't think they should, but if you do label them as independent contractors, treat them as such. That if you're an independent contractor, you don't own their real name. If they want to take outside bookings when they're not working with the company, they should be able to. And they can use and have relationships with third-party platforms like Twitch, like Cameo. Why? Because they're independent contractors. They're not legally bound to the company like an employee would be. They can take outside bookings. The fundamental issue when it comes to this whole independent contractor stuff is that they're independent contractors that are treated like employees without any of the employee benefits, whether that is dental, health insurance, road expenses, gas in the tank of their rental cars that they have to pay for, their hotel bills, their food, all of this sort of stuff WWE refuses to give them. That's why they're labelled as independent contractors. It comes down to money. Everything when it comes to WWE comes down to money. The shady deal in Saudi Arabia, despite all the human rights violations, what does that come down to? Money. Firing people during a pandemic and then boasting about record profits, what does that come down to? Money. This independent contractor stuff and treating them like employees without the benefits that an employee should be legally required to have or deserve. What does that come down to? Money. It always, fundamentally, comes down to money with WWE and any company. Because I've seen some people talking about that as well. People have been saying, wow, it's not just WWE that has the independent contractor stuff. And that's absolutely true. That is absolutely true. And this whole thing is such a microcosm, isn't it? Because you think about it, everyone's known about independent contractor stuff for years and years. Because it's been going on since the formation of pro wrestling. Especially with WWE and the global expansion in the 80s. Independent contractor stuff, everyone knew about it. And I think everyone, as I mentioned last night, kind of turned a blind eye to it, to be honest. They knew about it. They didn't like to think about it. They didn't like to talk about it because it made them feel bad. It made them feel dirty going, I support this company and they treat their talent like this, but I really like pro wrestling. So I'll put that to the back of my mind because I don't want to think about that. And I think, I know all the talent in WWE, if you asked them, they would probably say, well, I would prefer to be an employee. I should be treated like an employee. They control me like an employee, but I don't have any of the benefits of it. And I think most of the wrestlers, not even just in WWE, in the entirety of the pro wrestling industry would say, you know what, it's BS, but what can I do? It's the way that it is. It's never going to change, that kind of deal. I think that's the situation. And this is why it baffles me so much, because I don't think any wrestler really was willing to stand up and say, oh, this needs to change, because it was the way that it was. It was the way that it is, and it was the way it's always has been. And yet WWE has made, and Vince McMahon, I say WWE, Vince McMahon, has made such a fuss and such a tantrum about this third-party stuff that they've opened Pandora's box. They've opened such a can of worms. Because all of this, I mean, I don't know if we're going to get unionization. I still think I think there's people too high in that company that have too much power that are willing to give that up for it to happen. But they've opened this Pandora's box can of worms over Twitch. It's baffling. They could end up costing themselves so much money over a little bit of change out of their talents' pockets. It's so bizarre. It is so bizarre. Really just odd that this microcosm comes over Twitch. This potentially earth-shattering, business-shattering push that could happen over the next couple of years comes from WWE deciding, oh, we can't have our superstars on Cameo. Really, it could end up costing them so much money. So much money. And I've also seen people say, well, if it happens, if unionization happens, that's going to affect the pro wrestling business because then people like AEW, they've got to do it as well. That'll cost them money. And I've seen some people say the only people that could afford to do it are people that are backed by big money. Whether that is WWE, AEW, the NWA has Smashing Pumpkins money, I suppose, and Anthem does support Impact, they're well backed, but other smaller companies, they might go out of business because they can't afford to have all of their wrestlers be employees. You know what I say? Tough, because it's the way that it should be. And Zelina Vega said, I support unionization. You've had the SAG, obviously the Screen Actors Guild, they've come out and said, we support them as well. Imagine pro wrestlers went into the Screen Actors Guild, okay? WWE would lose their freaking minds, and rightfully so, they should. And you've had the president, or the chair, I can't remember what her official title is, she's reached out to Zelina Vega, said, email me. Andrew Yang, we'll touch on him in a second, he's had something to say as well. And this doesn't look to be an issue that's going away, and I said it at the time, I said it a couple of a month ago, whenever this story start to break, when was it, like a month ago, 6 weeks ago, this isn't going to go away. And I don't understand why WWE are doing it. I understand their motives, money, as I mentioned, fundamentally, it's always about money. But I look at this and I say, WWE, you're shooting yourselves in the foot. You are making a mountain out of a molehill that you need to know where, fight your battles. Fight your battles and know if it's your hill to die on or not. And I don't think this one is. Because as I said, you're making this huge microcosm out of Twitch. And it goes beyond Twitch now. It's not about Twitch. It's going to become bigger than that. It's going to become about independent contractor. And this is a conversation that should have been held years and years ago. But we'll have to wait and see on that. Now, going back to Zelina Vega. She's already posted on social media a couple of times saying, see you on Twitch. And she's already been back on Twitch following her release, discussing her release. She's insisted and clarified, Zelina Vega, I'm not done with wrestling. She actually said this quote here. Vega said, quote, on her Twitch stream, I'm sad and completely heartbroken. Obviously, this isn't the last you're going to see of me. I love you all, though. And I'm really, really thankful to every single one of you. If I go down as someone who stood up for themselves, so be it. I'm still thankful. I'm not angry. I'm just heartbroken because doing this, being a wrestler, is all I ever wanted to do. I don't really know what to say. There's so many things I want to say, but I don't know how. Now, these tributes obviously continued going out to Zelina Vega. The response on social media, I must say, from my point of view, I thought was absolutely outstanding. I don't think I maybe saw 1% of people take the side of WWE, and you always are. There are people that want to be controversial for the sake of controversy. There are some people saying, oh, it's a competitor to WWE if they're on Twitch. Just get a life, really, quite frankly. They're most of the people within the industry, not any WWE superstars, because WWE has that vice around their balls and their conscience, apparently. But you had a lot of people within the industry, even some people like Paige, who I think at this point just doesn't care anymore. She'll be fine. WWE fires her. I don't think she cares. She's not working. Like she said, she's being paid to sit at home. So she might as well do it on Twitch anyway. So she came out in support of Zelina Vega, and a couple of other people within the industry, people like AEW or other people, came out to support her. And from the fan point of view, I thought the fan response was absolutely fantastic to Zelina Vega. So credit to everyone that reached out to her and said positive things about her. And like I said, everyone within the industry over the last couple of years prior to her release has only said glowing things about Zelina Vega. So she's very well liked, very well respected within the industry, and she'll be fine. She'll be absolutely fine. Like she said, I think she's just heartbroken. I've mentioned this a couple of times. It's a lot of people's dream to go to WWE. And I know the response to that is, well, it's not everyone's dream, and it's not. You do have the Darby Allins that say, I have no interest in going to WWE. You do have the Eddie Kingston say, WWE would have fired me in 10 minutes. That's true, but for a lot of people, it still is their dream to make it to the big stage. It's the company they grew up watching. They want to have their WrestleMania match and their WrestleMania moment. Like Zelina Vega said, it's what she's always dreamed about doing as a kid. And she always wanted to make it to WWE and make it on that big stage. So, of course, it's heartbreaking, especially for it to end over something as trivial as Twitch. But as I mentioned, it's more than that. It's bigger than that. And I have huge, huge respect for Zelina Vega for, like she said, standing up for what she believed in, sticking to her values, sticking to her morals. And I really hope it's worth it. I really do. I don't want Zelina Vega to be one of those people that she stood up for what she believes in, and yet the big corporate giant wins again, and she can't get work because of it or anything like that. I don't think that's the case. I don't know. I'm not saying I think WWE probably will win because they win everything. But I hope it's worth it. I really do hope it's worth it. Now, as I mentioned, she continued with this Twitch stream after her WWE release. She thanked numerous people, including the likes of The Rock, Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, and Tommy Dreamer. She said, quote, I don't know where to start. I know a lot of the WWE Universe is here with me tonight, and I'm incredibly grateful. I wouldn't have enjoyed my success without you. The WWE, and most importantly, the people that believed in me from the start, like Tommy Dreamer, The Rock, Triple H, and Stephanie McMahon. Now, Vega had special thanks for The Rock and Tommy Dreamer believing in her and fighting for her when nobody else did. Of course, The Rock was a producer for the Fighting for My Family movie, which actually helped sort of get Zelina Vega's foot in the door in WWE. Tommy Dreamer was the one who actually discovered Thea Trinidad, Zelina Vega, and helped get her into Impact Wrestling, TNA, back in the day to get her start in the wrestling business. And Zelina Vega elaborated on this, saying, quote, Tommy and Dwayne believed in me when nobody else in the world did. They fought for me when nobody else would. I had gotten so many no's in my life up until that point. Now, despite the disappointment of her being released by WWE, Vega went on to thank WWE for helping make her dream come true. Like I said, she is one of those people that was in WWE that obviously it was a dream to be there. There's a lot of people there that have that same mentality. She mentions it was a dream for her since she was 4 years old. And obviously, a huge moment in Zelina Vega's life during her time in WWE is that she met her now husband, Aleister Black, which we'll touch on Aleister Black's status in a second. But Vega said, quote, during this Twitch stream, all I ever wanted to do as a 4-year-old girl was be a WWE superstar. And not just for me, but for my dad too. So I'm grateful to WWE and NXT for making this dream a reality. I'm not mad at anyone, I'm only thankful. If not for NXT, I would have never met my husband and some incredible people along the way. I'm not retiring from wrestling. Right now, I'm sad and heartbroken, and I don't know what the future holds. But I know I will be here, which is on Twitch, with you guys, and I'm grateful for that too. Now, obviously, as I said, it was sad. It was actually quite sad. If you go and watch the Twitch stream that Zelina Vega did last night, I recommend you do. It's very powerful. There's a lot of raw emotion in there. Obviously, this is someone who's just been told hours before that her dream with her dream company and her dream role was over. But she's also, I said it's emotional because she's upset, she's disappointed. But like she said, she stuck to her morals. She stuck to her morals. And she went straight to the place that WWE told her she couldn't go. And that's Twitch. And again, you have to respect her for that. You have to respect her for standing up for herself, sticking to her beliefs, sticking to her morals, and saying to WWE, you can't bully me. You don't own me. And if you're going to fire me over something as trivial as Twitch, but it's for me standing up for what I believe in, and if I can make a change when it comes to this independent contractor ruling, then so be it. And absolutely credit to her. Absolute credit to her, because there's a lot of people in her position that wouldn't have done that. And there's a lot of people in that company right now that aren't doing that. I don't want to point names, but I mentioned about Alexa Bliss the other day. She was asked during that podcast appearance about the whole independent contractor stuff. And what did she do? She's in a position of power in WWE. She's in a high storyline. She's well paid. She's had great success with WWE. Whether it's having her own podcast, having her own shows, having her own talk show segment, being involved with The Fiend on TV, being an 1,000,000-time women's champion. And she's only ever been with WWE, by the way. She was found by WWE, trained by WWE, went through the WWE system. What did she do? She did the corporate line. WWE takes great care of us. They take great care of us. I've never felt uncomfortable to perform in the ring, blah, blah, blah. Didn't mention the whole, they think they own us. Didn't mention, we think we own your real name. Didn't mention any of that. Didn't mention, I don't get any benefits. No, I don't get dental benefits and I don't get health benefits or anything like that. No, they said that when she had concussions, Vince McMahon sent her to a concussion specialist, as they should. Again, if you're an employee, that would be your right. That would be your benefit. Yet you're an independent contractor. You're classified as an independent contractor, yet you have the demands of an employee without any of the benefits. You've got to have it one of both ways. You're an independent contractor and you're treated as that, or if you're an employee, you should be treated as an employee. You should get the benefits of an employee. And it's gone on for too long. It's gone on for way too long. And as I mentioned, it's almost not about Twitch. It's not about Twitch at this point. It's about what this whole crackdown on third-party platform represents, the wider issue of the independent contractor BS. That's really fundamentally what this comes down to. Now, speaking of the whole independent contractor ruling, Andrew Yang has spoken out. Of course, Andrew Yang, former Democratic presidential nominee, has been incredibly vocal on the WWE and Vince McMahon's mistreatment of talents, classifications of independent contractor, and lack of health benefits, cover-ups, and all of the stuff people don't like to talk about or don't like to think about as a fan of WWE. I don't like to think about it. Like I said, it makes you feel dirty. Some of the stuff WWE has done throughout their history is vile, disgusting. How far do you want to go back? Do we need to mention Jimmy Snooker and all that sort of stuff? Watch the episode of Dark Side of the Ring and Vince McMahon in his briefcase and a meeting with a police officer in Pennsylvania. Okay, go and watch it. As a WWE fan, we don't like to talk about it. We don't like to talk about it, and maybe shame on us. Maybe shame on us for overlooking that because we like pro wrestling. As fans of pro wrestling, we're so starved for it that we have to watch and are fans of the talent in the company, even though the background of it is incredibly shady. Incredibly shady. And maybe, like I said, maybe shame on us because of that. Maybe the way to stop that is to stop watching it, because I thought this last night, and over here in the UK, obviously SmackDown's at 1 a.m. in the morning. I didn't watch SmackDown live last night. I decided, you know what, I'm gonna get some sleep actually. And I was thinking, and this always happens whenever you have these controversies in WWE, whenever you have people get released, or the Saudi Arabia deal and all of that sort of stuff. When that happened, people will criticize it too high. How? And again, even I'm guilty of this. I do a wrestling channel here on YouTube. People will say these things, go, it's terrible, it's terrible. Yet an hour later, after Zelina Vega's release last night, an hour later, after everyone was criticizing WWE, the independent contractor stuff, it's BS. Like, not even an hour later, minutes later, people are watching SmackDown. This is great, or her entrance is great, his entrance is great. Look at the pyro, look at the storylines, all this sort of stuff. And it's sort of like, well, you like 10 minutes ago, you're saying this is the worst company in the world, and you're supporting them by watching. And again, I'm guilty of it because we're starved for it, and WWE is the industry leader, the monopoly. They have a monopoly on the business. And it's a really difficult situation for fans to be in. And even I know I'm kind of contradicting myself by saying it and talking about it now. It's a difficult situation. I think as fans, we don't like to address it. We really don't. We really don't. But as I mentioned, Andrew Yang has been talking about this. And Andrew Yang has been evident in his response to Zelina Vega getting released that he's not letting go of his threat to WWE. Now, prior to this, when Andrew Yang had spoken out about WWE, he'd been on the likes of the Chris Van Vliet show. It's on YouTube, go check it out. It's a fascinating interview. He's spoken about that he's a pro wrestling fan. He was a WWE fan growing up. But he's aware of the mistreatment for talent by WWE. He's aware of the independent contractor classification. And he promised at the time, if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris win the presidential election, which they did. Sorry, but they did. Okay, people that say that's not true, it is. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden won the presidential election. He said, if I'm part of that administration, I'm going after Vince McMahon. And he said, I might not even be in the department that can go after Vince McMahon, but I know people that can, and I will know people in that administration that can. And obviously, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have won, and maybe it's a possibility. Let's see if Andrew Yang lives up to his word and keeps to his promise. It looks like he hasn't forgotten, because after Zelina Vega was released, someone tweeted that said, quote, hashtag Yang Gang welcomes Zelina Vega to the good fight. Hashtag humanity first is the motto and applies to all we stand for. Hashtag pro-union at Andrew Yang. And Andrew Yang quote tweeted this and responded, I haven't forgotten about Vince McMahon. It looks like he's still going after Vince McMahon. Credit to him. I hope he does fundamentally make some change. Maybe he doesn't change everything. Even if it's just him raising awareness of this issue inside pro wrestling, even if it's him bringing it to the political stage or bringing it to the mainstream stage, saying, by the way, look at pro wrestling, what's going on here. Even if he does that, then I think he's won. Then I think he's won this fight. Now, Andrew Yang has criticised WWE in the past for their labour practices and is confident he would have a new say in the administration if Joe Biden won, as I mentioned, even if he doesn't become Secretary of Labour. He said in a previous interview, quote, I will do whatever Joe and Kamala help us get to the next stage in our country's history. The post you're talking about was my categorizing, easy for me to say, the misclassification of professional wrestlers as independent contractors, which is completely ridiculous, which I absolutely agree with. He said that given that WWE controls their name and likeness for years and controls their activities in many ways, but anything that Joe and Kamala have for me and they think will help move the country forward, I would love to help. So let's watch this space, I suppose, when it comes to Andrew Yang. As I mentioned, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won, regardless of what people think, they did win. And let's see if Andrew Yang is part of that administration. I don't know if he will be Secretary of Labour. I don't know too much about the political side of things. I don't really want to get into that. It's a pro wrestling channel. As I mentioned, I don't know if we'll ever get unionization in pro wrestling. I don't know if pro wrestlers will be part of SAG, be part of the Screen Actors Guild. I don't know if that's ever possible. I hope it is. I really do, because I think the talent needs more protection. I think the talent needs benefits, and I think WWE and pro wrestling in general need to get their act together, and they need to be brought into the modern day. They need to be brought into 2020. As I mentioned, this isn't the 1980s anymore. I know WWE and pro wrestling was built on the carnivals and built on the carny atmosphere, and people like to reminisce and think about that, but that's gone. Those days have gone. WWE is a publicly traded corporate company floated on the New York Stock Exchange. They can't have it both ways. They can't have the carnival life but be corporate and political. Okay, they can't. They can't, and they should be held accountable for these kind of things. Now, obviously, when speaking about Zelina Vega, you do think, as she mentioned about meeting her husband, Aleister Black, in NXT. Now, obviously, after Zelina Vega's release last night, we touched on it. What's the situation when it comes to Aleister Black? Is he going to be leaving suit? A lot of people wouldn't blame him. It wouldn't be the first time a partner has followed their spouse and leaving the company. But obviously, you do have situations like with Mira going to AEW, Lana's still in WWE, so we could have it either way. But one of the most critical questions being discussed after the release of Zelina Vega is the status of Aleister Black within the company. Now, people have questioned, will Aleister Black also be released from WWE? What is his relationship with WWE management? Well, the Twitter account WrestleVotes provided an update on the entirety of the Zelina Vega situation, which also included an interesting note about Aleister Black. Now, WrestleVotes is very, very reputable, and their track record of providing these insider information, insider knowledge, scoops, what people call them. I hate calling them scoops. It just sounds terrible. But the insider information, all that kind of stuff, they are very, very reputable. I can't remember the last time they got something wrong. So that is how quality their reporting is. It really is. And they actually posted a tweet, it might have been this week, that said, sorry we haven't posted in a while, but we want to be right. We want to be reputable. We double check a lot of stuff. And if it isn't right, we won't tweet. We'll post quality stuff over quantity. So credit to them. But they have posted an update on the Zelina Vega situation and an interesting note about Aleister Black. It was revealed by them that the former NXT champion recently put in a request to move back to NXT at the Performance Center inside the Capitol Wrestling Center. Now, it was noted that the request couldn't be directly tied to Zelina Vega's release, but for what it's worth, WWE reportedly turned down Aleister Black's plea to be sent back to NXT. There is, by all accounts, also a lot of frustration on both ends of the spectrum. Here's what WrestleVotes tweeted in its entirety. It was, quote, "There's a bit more behind the scenes to Zelina Vega's release. Frustration from both sides is an understatement. While it can't directly be tied to today's news, Aleister Black recently requested a move back to NXT and was denied. Dissension amongst the parties involved," end quote. I find this fascinating. You know, I was just about to say I don't think Aleister Black will stay with WWE. I wouldn't be stunned in the slightest if he does leave. I think the issue there is, will WWE grant his request to be released? I wouldn't be surprised if he says, you know what, my wife's left. You can't treat my wife like this. I'm unhappy here. I wanted to move back to NXT. You've butchered my character. I was sitting in a dark room for months, and now I'm changed completely and all this kind of stuff. There has to be frustration there, and there is, by all accounts, frustration there. I wouldn't be surprised if he said to WWE, you know what, I'm out of here. I want my release. The difference being that WWE is very reluctant to grant people's requests to be released. And I know that sounds ironic considering they just released Zelina Vega, but we saw it in the past. We saw it in the past a lot in 2019. When AEW came around, a lot of people weren't happy within WWE and said, I want out. There was a cut-off point. They released the likes of Dustin Rhodes and Shawn Spears, and then they realized, oh damn, this AEW thing is real, and they can go to AEW, and they just stopped doing it. Brody Lee, Luke Harper was one of them. A ton of people, they said, we'll pay you to sit at home. We'll pay you to sit at home. We don't want you going to the competition. You can sit out your contract. Now, I don't know how long Aleister Black's contract is with WWE. I don't have that information. If it's 2 or 3 years, I'm not saying WWE will pay him to sit at home for 2 or 3 years, but they'll make him sit at home for like a year rather. They'll do that. Pac, they did it with Pac, Adrian Neville. They had him sitting at home for ages, and if they don't perform, sometimes, like they did with Pac, they'll freeze your contract. Say, well, you're in violation of your contract, so not only are you not getting paid, but you're not getting out your contract either. They will do that, and you'll go, well, that's very petty by WWE. Well, the sky is blue, too. It's just a fact of life. That WWE is petty. And again, I'll come back to my original point at the start of this video. I'll tie it all up nicely. It's all about money. And think about the asset that Aleister Black could be to AEW. We saw how great he was in NXT, and he can replicate that in AEW. And WWE knows that. The irony being that they know that, but they can't make it work for Aleister Black on WWE TV. So it's WWE's failing, okay? It's Vince McMahon's failing. Oh, Aleister Black is just missing something. He was an NXT champion. He wasn't missing anything in NXT. Yet when he gets called up to SmackDown and Raw, suddenly, oh, he's missing something. Maybe you're missing something. Maybe someone needs to have that discussion. Maybe Vince McMahon is missing something. Not that anyone would say that, because the balls of anyone in this company is firmly in Stamford, Connecticut. Apart from the likes of Zelina Vega, who's actually willing to stand up for what she believes in. So, will Aleister Black leave the company? Maybe eventually. I don't know. It depends how long his contract is. It depends if WWE wants to let him out of his contract, which they obviously don't want to. but they've butchered his character enough, whether it's changing his music, changing his look, changing his character, all of that sort of stuff. I find it fascinating that, was it a month ago, Aleister Black is doing interviews saying, oh, it's only the start of my character change, I'm really excited for this, and then suddenly you get these reports saying he wanted to go back to NXT. Obviously, in those interviews, he was doing the corporate spin. Obviously, he's not happy, and why should he be happy? Like I said, they've butchered his character beyond belief. Beyond belief. So we'll have to wait and see when it comes to Aleister Black. But like I said, this is only less than 24 hours after it was revealed that Zelina Vega has been released by WWE, and we've already had all of this fallout, all of these details, and I'm sure there'll be more to come in the coming days, so be sure to check out the channel. Any new news, we will be reporting it here for Wrestle News 365, and I'll be sharing my opinion with you guys. But as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Zelina Vega's release from WWE, these latest developments, Aleister Black requesting to go back to NXT? Do you think he will stay? What are your thoughts on Andrew Yang? What are your thoughts on all the stuff that Zelina Vega said on Twitch? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be sure to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you and chatting about WWE, pro wrestling, this kind of news, all that kind of stuff. Be sure to leave your thoughts below. There is no right or wrong opinion. I'll be sure to respond and reply. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. It really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously, so be sure to click that like button. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch, so be sure to click that button and click that notification bell. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.